Sprint has finally launched 5G in New York, LA, Phoenix, and Washington, D.C., bringing its total number of 5G cities to 9. That means it's covering 11 million people in the US. But more interestingly, you're probably going to wonder, what 5G phone can you use on Sprint's network? Well, alongside the Galaxy S10 5G and the LG V50 5G, you have a new one, the OnePlus 7 Pro 5G. We tried it out in New York City. Here's what it's like. 5G is the next-gen network technology following 4G LTE, and carriers are all following different methods to get you those faster internet speeds. Verizon and AT&T, for example, are offering millimeter wave spectrum, Sprint is offering mid-band or 2.5 gigahertz, and T-Mobile is offering low-band or 600 megahertz. The benefit of millimeter wave is that you get much faster data speeds, up to a gigabit per second or more, but you have a lot shorter ranges, up to a block, for example. Whereas with Sprint's mid-band, you're going to see greater range, but the problem is you're not going to see as fast data speeds. If you want to see our video testing 5G on Verizon's network with the Galaxy S10 5G, you can click here. And we also have a video testing the S10 5G on T-Mobile's millimeter wave network in New York City. T-Mobile is using 600 megahertz as their game plan, but they also have deployed some millimeter wave in the city. Enough talking, let's do a test with the OnePlus 7 Pro 5G. There's no 5G node to show like when testing millimeter wave networks. Sprint is adding its 5G networks to its existing 4G cell towers. So really, we're just given a lot of spots in New York City, and that's what we've been doing. We've been going around the city, hitting up those spots that Sprint says you can see fast speeds, and we're running speed tests using Ookla's speed test. Right now you can see we're nearing close to 200 megabits per second, and now we have surpassed it. That's pretty good. That's more or less what we've been seeing across in New York City, 200 megabits at least of speeds, download speeds specifically. Upload speeds are also using 5G NR, and they're definitely better than LTE, though still not as good as I'd like. Around 200 megabits per second is what I'm getting testing 5G on the OnePlus 7 Pro in New York City, but that's the downside with mid-band. Testing Verizon's 5G network, millimeter wave network in Chicago, for example, I was seeing speeds ranging higher than 500 megabits per second, even hitting more than 1 gigabit per second. But the downside with millimeter wave is that I could only go about a block or a block and a half, and then I would suddenly lose 5G. I would revert completely to 4G LTE, or I would be standing right in front of a 5G node, and then I would go to a coffee shop right underneath it, and I would again lose 5G completely because it has poor building penetration. That's the downside with millimeter wave. Now that will all improve as 5G networks continue to expand, but you can see the immediate benefits of mid-band because I can walk consistently for 15 or so blocks and still maintain a 5G connection on this phone. Now the speeds might vary, they might not always give me those 200 megabits per second or higher speeds. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. For example, typically I get at least around more than 100 megabits per second, but I've also gone as high as 400 megabits per second. I've also been testing the LG V50 ThinQ on Sprint's 5G network as well, and I'm more or less getting consistently the same speeds as the OnePlus 7 Pro 5G. Sadly, I don't have a 4G LTE Sprint phone to compare directly with the OnePlus 7 Pro 5G, but I have been using the Samsung Galaxy Note 10 Plus on AT&T's LTE Plus network, and the results have more or less been the OnePlus 7 Pro 5G beating it out easily, though there are some moments where the LTE has beaten the 5G network. When I first got this phone earlier today, I did a test and I hit 400 megabits per second, and I haven't really beaten that score yet, but we're in the second area and I'm finally getting a much faster speed and above 200 megabits per second. I just hit 345 megabits per second of download speeds and 22.9 megabits per second of upload speeds. All right, enough with the speed tests. What's it like in real life? You're probably not going to see much of a difference using 5G versus 4G LTE, and you won't see much of a dramatic difference in your everyday smartphone usage. But you will if you frequently download content on the go specifically. Let's try downloading a movie. Let's try downloading Netflix's Bird Box. All right, so it took around 1 minute and 30 seconds to download Bird Box on Netflix. That's pretty darn fast. But on millimeter wave testing Verizon's 5G network, I was able to download Bird Box in around 20 seconds. That's the difference between millimeter wave and mid-band. Still significantly fast, especially compared to LTE, but millimeter wave is going to be faster than mid-band. Speaking of LTE, I tried the same test on the Note 10 Plus, and around the 2-minute mark, the Note 10 Plus was only at 11% for the download of Bird Box. 2 minutes and it didn't even get to 11%, whereas 5G tests were already done. That's a pretty good difference between 5G and 4G LTE. 5G phones like the Galaxy S10 5G and the LG V50 ThinQ 5G are $1,000 or more, and I don't really think they're worth that high price. The OnePlus 7 Pro 5G only starts at $840, and you get 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage. It's not too much of a price jump from the 256 gig storage version of the regular OnePlus 7 Pro. I think if you're in a Sprint 5G city, and you already saw the OnePlus 7 Pro and you're liking the look of it and you're planning on upgrading to it, it might be worth to just spend a little extra and go for the 5G variant. Otherwise, it's best waiting for 2020.